Laughter rolled across the cul-de-sac like thunder. Paper plates rattled on folding tables. The grill hissed. Sister snapped a photo while brother-in-law held up a neon safety vest with giant black letters across the chest, freeloader. "Wear it," Sister said. "It matches your vibe." Neighbors looked over. Someone whistled. Someone clapped. I smiled so small it almost didn't exist, set the vest on the picnic table between the potato salad and the stack of sparklers, and walked away. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I took out my phone behind the shade of the pecan tree and tapped a contact most people never want to have memorized, the bank fraud line. "Hi," I said. "I'm reporting a pending home equity line of credit inquiry on Mother's house. It isn't hers. Please place an immediate freeze." The agent verified my identity, then said, "We can hold the file for 72 hours. The hold lifts Friday at 5 p.m. unless you provide evidence." "You'll have it," I told her, and pressed end. 3 minutes earlier, I was the butt of a joke at the block party. By Friday at 4 p.m., we'd be in a community room. The board would be taking notes, and the people who laughed would be the ones writing checks. If you've ever stood in a crowd and felt the ground tip under your feet, you know why I didn't answer the laughter. I save my voice for the room where evidence matters. I live in a quiet suburb just north of Austin where mailboxes match, grass rules are real, and our homeowners association sends emails that sound like they were written by a polite robot. I'm 34. I read spreadsheets like novels. I'm not dramatic. I'm a risk analyst for a payments company. My whole job is spotting patterns other people miss. A week before the 4th of July, Mother had brought me a letter with a little shake in her hand. She said, "They say it's an emergency," she whispered. The letter said, "Special assessment" in bold, $4,800 due in 30 days for urgent pool repairs and perimeter fencing. Mother lives 2 streets over, in the same neighborhood. She's on a fixed income. She doesn't swim, and the fence looked fine when I walked past it on my evening run.
I read the letter twice. The font looked wrong. That's a strange thing to say, but fonts are like fingerprints when you stare at documents for a living. The header had a faint copier shadow. The PDF's page number had a different baseline than the body text. The signature block said HOA Treasurer. That role belonged to brother-in-law. I told myself to breathe. "Call the office and ask for an itemized breakdown," I told Mother. She nodded, but I could see she wouldn't. She doesn't like to bother people, even when they're bothering her. I tried a different route. I emailed the general HOA mailbox and asked, as a homeowner, for the reserve study and the last 2 years of pool maintenance invoices. A bot sent me an acknowledgement. No one followed up. The next morning, Sister texted, "We're all pitching in. Don't be a problem." And that night, when I walked past the pool, the lights were off and the gate was padlocked. Not with the usual smart latch, but with a hardware store lock you buy when you don't want people to see what's inside. On July 4th, our street set out flags and coolers and lawn chairs. Kids drew stars and chalk down the sidewalk. Mothers traded recipes. The HOA president, a retired engineer who takes minutes like they're scriptures, stood near the grill in a polo shirt with the association logo embroidered over his heart. Around 3 p.m., brother-in-law arrived late carrying a battered banker's box and the neon vest. Sister followed with a tray of cupcakes and the kind of smile that means trouble. "Where's Mother?" I asked Sister, as the music bumped from someone's Bluetooth speaker. "She didn't feel well," Sister said. "Fireworks give her a headache. She asked me to bring you this." She pulled the vest out of the bag with a flourish. The big block letters said what they said. Neighbors who barely knew me laughed like they'd been waiting for the moment. Brother-in-law lifted his phone to record me. "Put it on," Sister sang. "Let's get a picture."
I smiled the way you smile when you step out of a dentist's office and pretend the Novocaine is no big deal. I set the vest down. I walked behind the tree. I made a call. And while our neighborhood cheered for the tug of war and ate popsicles, I started counting to 72 hours. The fraud agent took the street address, my contact information, and mother's full name. "We see a pre-approval inquiry from a broker in Dallas," she said. "No lien recorded yet, but a power of attorney was uploaded." My hand went cold. "Whose power of attorney?" "We can't see the full document, but the file is labeled with your mother's name and a notary reference. The hold will stop disbursement until close of business Friday. I'll need an affidavit from your mother," she said. "We'll provide a template." "We'll get it done," I said. I ended the call and walked back to the party. Sister was retelling a story about me borrowing a toolbox in college. That toolbox had been mine. Facts get blurry when people prefer a simple story. I took a hot dog I didn't want, said hello to neighbor who was setting up sparklers in a bucket of sand, and asked, "Do you mind if I check your doorbell camera later? I think it caught something the other night." Neighbor raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "A box of papers that shouldn't have left the clubhouse after midnight." He nodded slowly. "Come by after the fireworks."
In my head, I made 2 columns. Column A, what I knew. Column B, what I could prove. I knew Mother never signed a power of attorney. I knew the font on the assessment letter didn't match the HOA's usual template. I knew brother-in-law had access to the clubhouse after hours. I knew Sister liked to turn digs into jokes and then claim it was love. I could prove none of it yet. Back home, I opened my laptop and started a timeline. Saturday, Mother receives special assessment letter. Sunday, pool padlocked with a hardware lock. Monday, no reply to my records request. Tuesday, 4th of July block party. Neon vest, fraud hold placed at 3:27 p.m. I added a note to check the county recorder's website for filings. In our county, you can search recent recordings by name. I typed Mother's name. No new lien recorded. Good. I typed brother-in-law's name out of curiosity. 2 quitclaim deeds in the last year, both transferring slivers of ownership among investors in a flipping LLC. That alone meant nothing, but in risk work, patterns form from little dots. At 9, I walked to neighbor's house with a plate of cookies and rang the bell. He opened with the quiet relief of someone happy to slip away from a crowd. "Come in," he said. "What am I looking for?" I said, "June 26th, late, past midnight." He scrolled through thumbnails until he found it. 12:42 a.m., a tall figure with a baseball cap and a banker's box. The camera caught his face when he turned toward a passing car's headlights. Brother-in-law. The timestamp and the vehicle plate reflected on his truck's bumper. In the next clip, he popped the tailgate and slid the box into the bed. "Can you email me the clip?" I asked. "Sure," neighbor said. "You mind telling me what this is?" I said it's the difference between a joke and a receipt. He didn't push. Wednesday morning, I walked Mother to the notary at our credit union. We told the clerk we needed to sign an affidavit. Mother stating she had not authorized any power of attorney, had not signed any loan documents, and had not consented to any special assessment beyond regular dues. The clerk printed the bank's template from the link the fraud agent sent overnight. Mother's hand shook as she signed. She said, "I didn't want to make trouble." I said, "You're not making trouble. You're telling the truth. The trouble is what happens when truth is quiet." When we were done, I scanned the affidavit to PDF and uploaded it to the bank's secure portal. I attached the party letter, the neighbor's video, and my request for the HOA ledger. The fraud agent sent a quick reply. Received. Hold remains in place. Please provide any documentation about the HOA assessment and any evidence relating to a power of attorney. At noon, Sister called. "Are you done being dramatic?" she said. "We're all busy and you're making this weird." Mother signed an affidavit, I said. There's a fraud hold on a HELOC inquiry. It will expire Friday at 5 unless we provide enough evidence to shut it down. I need the HOA treasurer's backup for the special assessment. Bids, invoices, board vote minutes, reserve study. She sighed the long sigh that says I'm exhausting. You don't even come to the pool, she said. Why do you care? Because they tried to take money from Mother under a fake emergency, I said. If it's real, show me. If it's fake, fix it. She hung up. At 2, I drove to the county clerk's office. County buildings smell like paper and old air conditioner. The recorder's search terminal let me search by notary ID. The fraud agent had given me the number listed in the bank's file. The name came up. A mobile notary named Carla with a commission expiring next year. The index showed a handful of deeds, a couple of affidavits, and one document flagged last week with Mother's name in the summary field. I'd like to view the notary's journal entry for that date, I told the clerk at the counter. You can request a copy directly from the notary, he said. We don't keep journals here. Can I have the notary's contact information from the file? We can share what's on record. He printed a sheet with Carla's phone number and business email. I stepped into the lobby and called. Carla answered on the second ring. Hi, this is Carla, she said, cheerful like a receptionist. Hi, I said. I'm calling about a power of attorney you notarized naming my mother. She denies signing. We need to resolve it quickly. Silence. What's the document number? She asked. I read the reference from the county printout. Oh, she said softly, I remember that one. I met the signer at an insurance office. Which one? I asked. She hesitated. I can't disclose customer information. You notarized my mother's signature. If you have a journal entry, please check the ID you recorded. Give me an hour, she said and hung up. I sat in the car with the air conditioning blasting and stared at my own reflection in the black screen of my phone. I'm not the person people expect to cause a scene. I'm the person people call when they want the scene to be over. I texted Mother a heart. I stared at the county seal on the printed sheet until the paper blurred. An email arrived from Carla at 3:19 p.m. A photo of a spiral-bound notary journal page attached. The entry listed the date and time, the signer's name, Mother's name spelled correctly, and the document type, power of attorney. Under ID type, the entry said Texas driver license. Under ID number, the digits didn't match Mother's license, not even close. Under witnesses, the line was blank. Under thumbprint, it read declined. A wave of heat rolled through my chest. I wrote back, "Thank you. Please confirm the location where you met the signer." She replied, "The office requested privacy and asked me to meet in their conference room. The treasurer of your HOA scheduled it. He said the signer had mobility issues." My hands shook so hard I had to steady them on the steering wheel. I forwarded the email to the bank fraud agent. Journal shows wrong ID number and no thumbprint. Notary says HOA treasurer scheduled the appointment at an insurance office. Mother denies signing. The agent responded faster than I expected. Received. This is sufficient to keep the hold in place pending further review. If you can provide the HOA's board meeting minutes authorizing a special assessment, that will help our risk committee understand the total picture. I drove to the HOA office. The door was locked. Office hours by appointment only. On the wall, a corkboard displayed the monthly newsletter no one reads. The last board meeting agenda, printed a month ago, listed routine items, landscaping contract, architectural approvals, pool rule reminders. No special assessment. I took a photo. On the way home, I saw brother-in-law's truck parked at the clubhouse. Through the glass, his silhouette bent over the copier. I kept driving. When you already have a video, you don't chase another one. You let the paper trail do the work.
Wednesday night, I pulled the HOA's recorded financials from our state's nonprofit registry website. It took too long and crashed twice, but I found last year's annual report. The association had a reserve fund sufficient to cover routine pool maintenance. The report noted no urgent capital projects, no fence failures, no structural leaks. I built a simple cash flow chart on my laptop. Dues in, expenses out, reserve stable. The special assessment letter would have been unnecessary unless something catastrophic happened. If something catastrophic had happened, the board would have recorded it in the minutes. There were no minutes. My two columns shifted. Column B, the proof column, grew. Thursday morning, I woke up to a text from Sister. "You are embarrassing yourself. The board will make a statement. Stand down." I pictured the neon vest on the picnic table and typed back, "Send the minutes authorizing the special assessment, the bids, the invoices, and the reserve study that says this work can't wait." 10 minutes later, an email pinged. A single PDF from brother-in-law. 5 pages of an emergency memo with estimates. The header font was still wrong. One estimate used a California contractor's license number. Our county doesn't issue numbers in that format. The memo referenced catastrophic pump failure and fence collapse along the west easement. I called neighbor and asked him to walk with me to the pool. The pump housing, visible through the equipment room window, hummed like normal. The west fence stood steady. A loose board hung near the corner, but the posts were straight. Looks fine to me. If anything, it's quieter than last summer.
At 9, the bank fraud agent called. "We've alerted the broker that the power of attorney is under investigation," she said. "They've paused processing." I thanked her. "We still need a formal report to close the case," she said. "Law enforcement or a regulatory authority." "The HOA board will hold a hearing Friday at 4 in the community room," I said. "Will a written summary of outcomes plus notarized statements suffice?" "Yes," she said. "If the board acknowledges irregularities and reverses the assessment, we can treat the POA as part of a pattern and block the HELOC." "We'll bring the receipts," I said. Thursday afternoon, the HOA president sent a neighborhood-wide email. "We understand residents have questions about the special assessment and rumors about improprieties," it read. "We will hold a special session Friday at 4 p.m. at the community room to answer questions and provide transparency." Attached was a simple Zoom link for people who couldn't attend in person. Sister forwarded the email to me with a single line, "Happy now?" I didn't answer. I spent Thursday evening preparing 3 boards on my dining room table. Not cardboard displays, but simple stacks of paper organized with binder clips. The first stack was the timeline. Dates, emails, the neighbor's doorbell video screenshots with timestamps, the newsletter photo of last month's agenda without the assessment item. The second stack was the money trail, last year's financials from the nonprofit registry, the memo estimates with the California license format circled, a printout of the association's bank statement that the president quietly sent me at 7 p.m. after I called and asked, "Do we have a second account?" He hesitated, then said, "We have an operations account and a reserves account." "Why?" "Because I think the assessment is landing somewhere else," I said. "I'll see you tomorrow." The third stack was the fraud file. Mother's affidavit, the notary's journal photo with the wrong ID number, the bank agent's email confirming the hold.
At 10, the HOA president texted me. "I can't give you board documents without a vote," he wrote. "But I looked at the treasurer's deposit entries. He used a sub-account labeled Capital Reserve 2 the bank opened 2 months ago. I didn't know we had it." "Can you print the ledger?" I asked. "I can bring it to the meeting," he said. "Bring it," I replied. Friday morning, Sister knocked on my door without warning and walked in like she paid the mortgage. "You are not going to humiliate my husband in front of the neighborhood," she said. "You can send questions by email like everyone else." "I'm going to present facts," I said. "Facts are not humiliation." "You've always hated that he actually does things while you sit behind a computer," she said. I looked at her and saw the girl who once cried when her science project fell apart and the woman who learned that offense is the best defense. I don't hate him, I said. I hate when people take advantage of Mother and call it leadership. She walked through our kitchen like she owned the floor. You've never even liked this neighborhood, she said. You think you're better than us. I think people deserve their money back, I said. How did the vest joke feel to you? She froze, then shrugged. It was funny, she said weakly. People laughed. I said, people always laugh when it's not about them. Be at the meeting. Sit in the front row. I want you to see the evidence. At noon, I drove Mother to the county clerk again. We filed a simple form revoking any power of attorney fraudulently recorded. The clerk stamped the document and slid the paper back across the counter. Effective upon filing, he said. He didn't smile, but his eyes were kind. I scanned the file and emailed it to the bank fraud agent on my phone from the hallway bench. At 1:30, neighbor texted, "Do you need me at the meeting?" I wrote, "If you can, bring the clip on your phone." "Done," he wrote.
At 3, I put the 3 stacks of paper in a canvas tote bag and walked to the community room. Folding chairs faced a long table draped in a blue vinyl tablecloth. The HOA president sat in the middle, a legal pad in front of him. A board member who always wears a visor, no matter the weather, sat on his left. On his right, brother-in-law arranged a binder, his jaw tight. Sister sat in the front row, arms crossed. The room smelled like coffee and laminate. A dozen neighbors trickled in. Others logged into the Zoom link. Their faces popped up on the big TV on the wall, muted squares with living room backgrounds. The president tapped the microphone. "We'll begin," he said. "This is an open session to address questions about the special assessment and to provide clarity. I'll ask that we remain respectful." He looked at me briefly like someone peeking out a window at a storm cloud, and then steadying his voice. Brother-in-law cleared his throat. "The assessment was necessary due to catastrophic pump failure and a fence issue," he said, sliding photos onto the table. The photos showed close-ups of rust and a broken slat. Invoices were obtained from 3 vendors with immediate response teams. Delays would have risked safety. He spread his hands the way managers do when they want to look open. "I'll walk through the numbers." I raised my hand. "Before we look at photos of rust, can we see the board vote authorizing a special assessment?" The president looked at brother-in-law. Brother-in-law smiled the tight smile of someone who thinks he's smarter than a room. "He said we took an email vote because of timing," he said. "Do you have those emails?" I asked. He flipped a page, then another. "I don't have the printouts," he said. "How many votes did you receive?" I asked. 3, he said. "From which board members?" "Myself, the secretary, and the chair," he said. The president blinked. "I did not cast a vote," he said carefully. A murmur rolled through the chairs. Sister shifted in her seat.
"Let's slow down," the president said. "We'll collect the email thread and add it to the minutes after this meeting." "Thank you," I said. "Now, about the fund flows. Which account received the assessment payments?" Brother-in-law pointed to a line on his printout. "Capital Reserve 2, he said. "We had to separate the funds to track the project." The president unfolded a paper from his legal pad. "I was not aware of a Capital Reserve 2 account until last night," he said. "I called the bank this morning. The account was opened 2 months ago under our EIN, with the treasurer as primary. No board resolution on file." He placed the bank's letter on the table. I walked to the front and asked, "May I?" He nodded. I read aloud, "Sub-account established May 15th, authorized by treasurer, purpose capital improvements, signers listed as treasurer and 1 additional officer." "Who is the additional officer?" I asked. Silence. The visor board member swallowed. "I signed the card at the pool opening party," she said weakly. "I thought it was a vendor form." The president exhaled like a tire losing air. "Neighbor," I said softly. He stood and walked to the front. "This is the doorbell clip from my porch on June 26th, he said. He held up his phone so the room could see the glow. Brother-in-law's face filled the screen briefly as he lifted the banker's box, light catching his features. "He left the clubhouse around 12:40 a.m., neighbor said. "The timestamp is embedded by the camera. You can see the tailgate close on the truck. I can share the original file." "I took board binder home to reconcile invoices," brother-in-law said quickly. "The office was closed for painting." "The office door has a paint schedule taped to it. It says the painters come next week." Sister rolled her eyes, but in the roll there was a flicker of worry. "Let's discuss the vendors," I said. I held up the memo with the California license format. "This estimate lists a contractor's license number in a format our state doesn't use," I said. "I called this number. The contractor is in Fresno. He does commercial HVAC. He's never heard of our neighborhood." Someone in the back said, "What?" without meaning to. I said, "The other two estimates are from local companies that exist. I called them this morning. Both said they emailed questions about site access and never received answers. Neither signed a contract, yet an assessment notice went out."
"Because we didn't have time," brother-in-law snapped. "We had to act." "Act on what?" I asked. "The pump running right now? The fence standing outside?" "You're not a facilities expert," he said. "You don't even swim." "I read the financials," I said. "I also talked to the state registry. Last year's reserve study recommended a pump service in September and fence staining in October. Both are routine maintenance items scheduled in the budget. They didn't require a special assessment." The president looked at his hands. "Let's address the bigger issue," I said, placing the third stack on the table. "While this assessment landed in a sub-account opened without a board resolution, a broker in Dallas initiated a home equity line of credit inquiry in Mother's name. The file included a power of attorney. Here is Mother's notarized affidavit stating she did not sign any such POA. Here is the notary's journal page showing the wrong driver's license number and no thumbprint. Here is the bank fraud agent's email confirming a hold until 5 p.m. today." I slid the papers toward the president. Mother almost lost access to her own equity because someone created a path. "You're accusing me of a crime," brother-in-law said. His face reddened around the collar. "I scheduled the notary as a courtesy. The signer had mobility issues." Mother walked into the credit union yesterday to sign her own affidavit in ink. She does not have mobility issues. The notary says you scheduled the appointment at an insurance office, not Mother's home. And your side account sits ready to collect a flood of checks from elderly residents who trust the word emergency. This is not courtesy. It's engineering. Sister stood. "She's twisting everything," she said. "You all know how she is. She makes a spreadsheet and suddenly everyone's a thief. She didn't even wear the vest. It was a joke." The room didn't move with her. The joke lay between the rows like a dropped plate that no one wanted to step on. The president held up his hand. "We will take a 5-minute recess," he said. He gathered the papers and walked into the hallway with the visor board member. Brother-in-law stared at me like I was a problem he hadn't budgeted for. Sister stared at the floor. I sat in the second row and watched the clock over the whiteboard. 4:27 p.m., 33 minutes until the bank hold lifted by default. I thought about how many times in my life I'd been told I was overreacting because I noticed details other people ignored. I thought about how many times people laughed at the wrong things and how often we call it bonding when we mean bullying. I thought about Mother at the kitchen table folding bills in even stacks or her budget would stretch to the end of the month.
The board returned at 4:34. The president's voice was steady, but his hand trembled when he set down the papers. "Here is what we are doing," he said. "Effective immediately, we are suspending the treasurer's access to all association accounts pending a third-party review. We are instructing the bank to freeze the Capital Reserve 2 sub-account. We are rescinding the special assessment. Any checks received will be returned uncashed. Any funds deposited will be transferred back to the operations account and refunded. We are calling a special election to fill the treasurer's seat. We will hire an independent CPA to audit our books, and we will deliver a copy of this decision and the supporting documents to the bank fraud unit and to the county clerk before 5 p.m. today." He looked at brother-in-law. "Please hand me the debit card and checkbook." Brother-in-law's mouth opened and closed. He reached into his wallet, slid a card across the table, and then opened the binder and placed a checkbook beside it. Sister whispered something I didn't catch. He shook his head. The visor board member blinked very fast and wrote something on her pad. The president looked at me. "Can you email me the bank contact?" "I already did," I said. "She's expecting your letter." He nodded. Meeting adjourned. We didn't clap. It didn't feel like a moment for applause. People stood quietly, like a room after a storm when you can still hear the rain outside. Neighbor touched my sleeve. "You want me to walk with you to the clerk's office?" "Yes," I said, "thank you." We drove downtown and parked in a metered space in front of the county building. The hallway looked the same as it had that morning. Beige tile, bulletin board with notices no one reads, a vending machine that always eats quarters. The president met us on the steps, slightly out of breath, and the visor board member trailed behind him carrying a manila folder. We reached the counter at 4:51 p.m. The clerk's nameplate read J. Flores. He looked at the clock and arched an eyebrow. I slid the folder toward him. "We need to file a board action letter, a freeze request, and a revocation of an improperly recorded POA," I said. "And we need you to timestamp the file in the system before 5. He took the papers calmly and began to stamp. The sound of the stamp smacking paper should not feel like music, but it did. At 4:57 p.m., the bank fraud agent called. "We've received the board letter and the county filing," she said. "The hold will remain in place while we complete the investigation. The broker has been notified that the file is closed for suspected fraud. We'll also place a permanent flag, so no further action can be taken without your mother physically present at a branch." I thanked her and stepped aside so the president could thank her too. He did, his voice quiet. Outside on the steps, the sun slanted low and hot. The president ran a hand over his face. "I should have seen the signs," he said. "That's my job." "I want to trust our neighbors," I said. "That's the point of neighborhoods. It's also how we get hurt." He looked down the steps, where people were starting to set up camp chairs for the city fireworks show. "I'll make a statement tonight," he said. "People will want to know we're fixing it." "They'll want their money back," I said gently. "We'll get it back to them," he said. "I promise." When I got home, Sister sat on my porch steps, arms around her knees like a kid. "Happy?" she said, eyes flat. "No," I said, "this isn't happy. You made him look like a crook. He made himself look like a crook. I showed the paper. You always think paper is everything. Paper got Mother's house back. Paper got the assessment reversed. Paper is how we turn feelings into facts." She stared at the street. After a minute, she whispered, "I told him the vest was too far." I didn't say, "You didn't stop him." I didn't say, "You laughed." I didn't say, "You sent me the email telling me to stand down." I didn't say any of it. "I'll drive Mother to the bank Monday so she can put the permanent flags on her account records," I said. "Come with us if you want." She nodded without looking at me. "I don't know what happens to us after this," she said. "We could try telling the truth," I said. "That's a start."
Saturday, the HOA sent an email with the subject line, Transparency and Next Steps. It explained the freeze, the special election, and the audit. It included a simple form for refunds and a note that the pool would reopen after a scheduled service next week. The email didn't name brother-in-law, and it didn't need to. People talk. By Sunday afternoon, a dozen neighbors had dropped by my porch, one at a time, some with banana bread, some with awkward jokes, some with quiet thanks. The ones who had laughed on the 4th looked at their shoes when they apologized. We thought it was a bit, one said. It's easier to laugh with a crowd, I said. Harder to stand up in one. You did, she said. Only because the paper did, I said, and because the bank picked up. The audit started the following week. The CPA found small leaks, late fees misapplied, a vendor overcharge here, a duplicated expense there, and one big one. The sub-account had received 8 checks before the meeting, mostly from older residents, totaling almost $12,000. The bank reversed the deposits into the main account and refunded each owner with a letter apologizing for the confusion. The letter never used the word fraud. It didn't have to.
The board set a date for a special election. Brother-in-law resigned the treasurer role under a sentence that used the word personal reasons. The president asked me, gently, if I would consider serving on the finance committee. I said yes on one condition, that we publish the budget in plain language every quarter and include an open Q&A session anyone can attend without being spoken to like a problem. He smiled. Deal, he said. Mother came with me to the branch on Monday. We sat with a banker named Priya, who wore a cardigan with flowers on the sleeves and had a way of explaining things that made them feel manageable. Mother added a note to her file requiring in-person verification for any new credit inquiries. She set up alerts that would ping me and sister if anything larger than $50 moved. She laughed when Priya said, I wish all my clients brought their daughters. Mother said, she's the reason this is getting fixed, and squeezed my hand under the desk. Sister didn't come to the appointment. She texted later, I'm sorry. 2 words, no punctuation. I stared at the screen for a while and typed, thank you for saying it. She didn't reply. That night she left a tote bag on my porch. Inside was the neon vest, folded small. Under it, a note. I'll pay for Mother's alert fees. It's not enough, but it's a start. I placed the vest in the back of my closet, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of how quickly people can become brave in a group when they should be kind. When the audit report was read aloud at the next open meeting, the room didn't buzz the way it had before. People asked calm questions. The CPA answered them in plain English. The president explained the election process. A retired teacher volunteered to be the interim treasurer. The visor board member apologized for signing a form she didn't read. Brother-in-law didn't attend. Later that week, a county investigator called to ask a few follow-up questions about the notary's journal. He was courteous and methodical. He asked how I suspected the POA in the first place. Because the bank called when I called, I said. Because the notary wrote the wrong number. Because trust is not a process. He chuckled softly and said, I wish all complaints were this documented. Most people don't think they're allowed to ask for proof, I said. They are. When the summer heat broke in late August, a breeze moved through the neighborhood and people reappeared on sidewalks at twilight. The pool reopened with a new lock and a simple sign that said, Welcome, and listed the maintenance schedule in big letters. A kid cannonballed under a sky the color of a bruise fading. An old man read a mystery novel in the shallow end with his feet in the water. The world kept turning, which is both terrifying and comforting when you've just stood still for 72 hours.
The night before Labor Day, I grilled in my backyard with Mother and Neighbor. We ate corn on the cob and burgers we didn't need but wanted. Neighbor told a long story about his cousin's wedding in El Paso, where the DJ brought his own fog machine and set off the fire alarm. Mother laughed. The sound of her laugh when she isn't worried is better than any bank letter. After dinner, I rinsed plates and stacked them to dry. Mother stood beside me, towel in her hands. "I'm sorry I didn't worry earlier," she said. "I should have brought you the letter the day I got it." "You have nothing to be sorry about," I said. "You trusted your neighbors. That's what neighborhoods are for." She nodded, eyes on the sink window. "Do you think Sister will be okay?" "I think people figure things out when they want to. Sometimes they need to run out of options first." That weekend, Sister texted me a photo of a flyer, a community yard sale to benefit the school's band program. "Do you have anything for the sale?" she wrote. "Yes," I typed. "I'll bring 2 boxes." Then I added, "Do you need help setting up tables?" "I'll take help," she wrote. It wasn't a reconciliation. It was a table, and sometimes that's where you start. On the morning of the sale, we met at the school parking lot with folding tables and those plastic tablecloths that never sit straight. Sister handed me a roll of masking tape and a black marker. "Prices," she said. "You're good at numbers." I laughed, not because it was funny, because sometimes the way back to normal sounds a lot like the way you got hurt, and you have to decide to hear it differently. "I'll make signs," I said. We priced a box of paper bags at $1 each. We priced a toaster we didn't need at $5. We priced an exercise bike at whatever someone would give us to haul it away. People came. They always do, for bargains and hot coffee and the feeling of a community doing something small together. The band kids played a medley and the sound was uneven and joyful. Sister stood next to me and told a story about a camping trip that did not make me look ridiculous. I told a story about a dog that did not make her look ungrateful. We sold the exercise bike for $10 and laughed for real when the buyer left it behind and we had to chase him down the sidewalk with a bungee cord. In the fall, the HOA held its special election. 2 new board members joined, both people who had never raised their hands before. The new treasurer publishes a simple 1-page budget every quarter with boxes and arrows and a summary paragraph that sounds like it was written by someone who knows her neighbors read on phones. The pool service company posts photos after they do the work. Clean filters, oiled hinges, a backwash log with dates and neat handwriting. Small transparency costs nothing and buys a lot.
Every now and then, when I pass the closet where the neon vest sits folded at the back, I think about that afternoon and the way the letters looked in the sun. I think about how quickly a joke can turn into a weapon and how quietly a phone call can turn into a shield. I don't take the vest out. I don't need to. The reminder isn't the fabric. It's the habit I kept. To walk away when the crowd laughs and call the room that uses stamps. If you've been the person they call organized until it suits them to call you something else, you know this part of the story already. People will talk about tone and timing and how you could have been softer. People will say you overreacted. People will call the board a committee and act like that makes it smaller. But when you stand in the room and lay the paper flat, and the clerk stamps, and the bank flags the file, and the president takes the card from the treasurer's hand, there is a quiet that isn't approval or shame. It's relief. It's the sound of rules working for the right person. On a Wednesday in October, I walked with Mother to the mailbox. Leaves scuffed the curb. The bank sent a final letter to confirm the fraud case closed. The broker's file was tagged. The HOA POA revocation sat in the county system like a speed bump no one could ignore. The HOA sent a separate envelope with a gift card to the hardware store and a note, "For fence stain in the spring, on us." Mother smiled at that.
The way people smile at gestures, even when the gesture is not the story. We sat on her porch and watched a kid ride a bike without training wheels for the first time. The bike wobbled and then found its line. Do you ever get tired of being the one who notices? Mother asked. I get tired, I said, but I don't get sorry. Good, she said. I raised you to be tired and brave. I didn't correct her. She didn't raise me alone, and brave isn't a trait, it's a choice you repeat. But sitting there in the light that makes everything look softer, I let her have that sentence. She earned it. The Sunday before Thanksgiving, neighbor knocked on my door with a Tupperware of green chili stew and said, "You coming to the HOA potluck?" I laughed. After all that? He shrugged. Transparency tastes better with casseroles. He wasn't wrong. At the potluck, the new treasurer showed me a binder with tabs I didn't need to see, and I told her it looked great because it did. The president introduced a motion to adopt a board member training policy. People clapped because the word policy no longer meant we're hiding something. It meant we're telling you first. Sister set a tray of brownies on the dessert table and caught my eye. She mimed wiping sweat off her brow, and I smiled. Small language, useful jokes, kindness that carries weight. When we left, the air snapped cold. I stood in the driveway, hands in my pockets, listening to the sound a neighborhood makes when it isn't worried. Lights clicked off one by one like a slow applause. I looked up at the strip of sky framed by 2 oak trees and thought of all the rooms I've stood in with my jaw set and my palms sweating and my brain running faster than I can speak. I thought about how none of it looks heroic from the outside. It looks like paperwork and patience and polite phone calls. It looks like bringing a tote bag to a meeting. I didn't get the last laugh. I didn't want it. What I got was better. A paper trail that kept my mother's house hers, a pool that opened on time, a budget anyone can read, and a neighborhood that learned how to put the jokes down long enough to vote. If you're listening because you know what it feels like to be the punchline and the safety net at the same time, here's the only advice I trust. Keep your receipts and your voice steady. Walk away when the crowd wants a show. Call the number that uses case files. Bring your neighbor and the timeline and the calm. You don't need to win the room. You just need the stamp before 5. And when you get it, go home, make dinner, sit on the porch, watch the light change, and remember that being underestimated is quiet power if you don't waste it trying to prove anything to anyone who isn't looking. Sometimes the only person who has to know you did it right is you. Sometimes, if you're lucky, your mother knows too.